G'day everybody, Patrick here. Today I'm going to be talking about the AWS Certified Machine Learning Specialty Exam. Now this is a very interesting exam. It's not really like the others in that it will test you on things beyond just knowing how to use AWS. So I want to share the resources I used to prepare for this exam, as well as other things that I found useful, the hands-on preparation that I did as well, and finally some strategies and tips for getting a great mark on this exam, as well as understanding all the content that it tests. I always say that the goal of passing an exam like this should be to verify and to show that you know something. Just passing the exam to pass the exam and to cram is a strategy that's not going to work out too well long term because you're not actually going to have the skills required. There's just a little thing on mindset before we go in. So let's start at the beginning. Where was I before I started studying for this AWS Machine Learning Specialty exam? So rewind to around June of this year, and I had had some experience with machine learning, but nothing that I would call structured. So I had worked with TensorFlow before. I had made some simple machine learning models. I had also built a visualizer for support vector machines as a little side project for fun. Other than that, I hadn't really gone deep into understanding the maths behind machine learning. I knew a little bit about how neural networks worked, but not really much beyond the basics. And that was about the extent of my knowledge. So I'd say I was sort of like a confident beginner, but I definitely hadn't structurally applied myself and tried to learn properly. So that's where I was a few months ago. And in that time, I've come a really long way and made some significant progress. I'm by no means an expert at this point, but it was definitely enough to get this certification under my belt and to say that I confidently know how to put together machine learning solutions on AWS. So I decided that I wanted to learn machine learning the right way, and I wanted to learn in terms of the fundamentals first before I even started thinking about deploying to AWS and focusing on the cloud side of it. So for that, I used a course called Introduction to Machine Learning by Andrew Ng. Now, Andrew Ng is an extremely high-powered guy. He worked on Google Brain at quite a high level. I think he may have been the lead of Google Brain at one point. So he has this course that goes through all of the fundamentals of machine learning from the ground up, starting with linear regressions and logistic regressions and talking about how you can fit a model to a set of data. Then he starts talking about more complicated models like, for example, decision trees and then boosted decision trees, extreme gradient boosted decision trees like XGBoost. And then we start talking about neural networks. Backpropagation is a big theme. We talk about different functions for activation, perceptrons, recurrent neural networks, convolutional neural networks, and some applications of these like signal processing, image classification, object detection, and things like that. So it starts off with the real fundamental basics. There's a lot of maths in this course, and then it builds up into actionable projects that can actually get things done with. And that's what I really liked about this course. It also has nothing to do with deploying these models at this point. So that was one thing I didn't have to worry about to start with, which I liked. Just a bit of a warning, I did say there's a lot of maths here. So if you find maths is not your strong point or it's something that you don't enjoy, I'd say two things. Number one, you can learn it, and as you get better at something, you'll tend to like it more. But number two, if you really don't like it, even after spending a lot of time trying, perhaps this area is not for you. There's plenty of other things in IT that don't use as much raw mathematics, and machine learning is definitely not one of those things. There's a lot of maths here. So with that all in mind, I followed this course and I made a few little practice applications, nothing too extreme. And then the next thing that I tried to do was to apply this knowledge to some projects at work. So recently I've been interning with an Australian bank, and I've been working on a team that handles property price predictions. We have the most accurate system in Australia for predicting the price of houses given a set of features about the house. So for example, if we know that a house has a certain amount of land area and a certain suburb that it's in, potentially that it has 2 bathrooms, 3 bedrooms, then we can get a prediction for the price of that house. And our predictions are within 5% on average of the actual price. So I've had the really great opportunity to be working on this team, improving this system and taking some extra data in that we previously weren't using. So what I've been working on is a set of models that take the images provided about these houses and they run through these images to find objects of interest that can affect the sale price of the house. So for example, air conditioners indicate that the house has air conditioning and that increases the value of the house. There's quite a lot to this model and there's quite a lot going on here, and it goes far beyond what I've just explained, but I don't want to go too far in depth because it would bore you, and also I'm under an NDA. So I spent the first few weeks of my internship working on that while studying for the AWS Certified Machine Learning Specialty exam with that handwritten course behind my back. So here's the courses I used specifically for the AWS side. So I started with a course on A Cloud Guru by Brock Toubre and Scott Pletcher. This was a great introduction to the sort of content that the exam would be covering. As with many of the A Cloud Guru courses, it wasn't really enough to make me feel confident about the exam. And in fact, at the time, I didn't realize there were other options out there, so I booked this exam. And I had a whole bunch of technical hiccups with the exam testing provider that caused me to reschedule this exam to a later date. At the time, I was really frustrated, but I'm actually glad that that happened, because I know now, looking back, I was not ready to sit the exam. I might have passed, but only just if I did. So the next course I found was on Linux Academy, and it was by Mike Chambers. And what I really liked about this course was it went quite in depth with a variety of different demos. Linux Academy has a mascot called Pinehead, which is a penguin. And there was a series of demonstrations setting up a model to identify in an image, does this image contain Pinehead or does it not contain Pinehead? It's a bit of a riff on an episode of the TV show Silicon Valley, where a hot new app is made to identify if an image contains a hot dog or not. So this is the same idea, except with this particular plushy penguin. I really like this demo because it really showed the machine learning process end to end. We built a whole pipeline. You start with a series of training images. You run some data wrangling in Python in a Jupyter notebook, which you can do within AWS as well. And then finally, you build this model, deploy it, and you can run inference against this model. He also even went a step further and used a deep lens camera, which is a product from Amazon, to do this machine learning on a small device. So this was a really great course. This is just one of these demos. There was plenty others like it. So if you like hands-on work and you want to see some of this applied, that's also very useful. The third one, and it pains me to say this one last, but I want to say it as the last one because this is the order that I went through these courses. The final course I did was by Stefan Marek. Now, Stefan Marek is a brilliant instructor. For each one of the courses he offers, it's almost my first point of call at this point to go with Stefan, because he's such a thorough instructor who really prepares you not just for the exam, but also for using this content in real life. Most of Stefan's courses is just Stefan talking, very engaging, very thorough, and he really knows his stuff. But for this one, he went a step further and he brought in a machine learning expert by the name of Frank Kane, who helped to instruct some of the finer points of the course. When I say finer points, I mean some of the really tricky peculiarities of machine learning on AWS and machine learning in general. So a final word of advice for this exam: you definitely have to apply the knowledge that you're working on. You can't just sit in front of a screen watching lectures all day, taking notes and expect to do well. You actually have to take on some practical projects and apply the knowledge. So if you're like me and you're in the situation where you're lucky enough to be able to do this in some way relating to your work, then take that opportunity for all it's got and really embrace it. I think most people aren't in that situation though, and that's fine as well. All you need to do is find some projects that you find interesting and work on those in your spare time. So for example, Kaggle.com is a great source of various data sets and various competitions for setting up mainly around the data science side of machine learning algorithms. So as an example, there's a data set called the Titanic data set, where you can see a list of all of the passengers who were on board the Titanic, their age, sex, ticket class, and a variety of other information about those passengers. And then you can see whether or not they survived when the Titanic hit the iceberg. Now you may be saying, what has this got to do with machine learning? Well, it has everything to do with machine learning, because what you can do is you can train a model to try and predict if someone survives based off other characteristics. And so I used this when I was trying to learn all of this and built a model that could predict with, say, around 80 to 82% accuracy whether someone was going to survive, just based off the information we were given. This is a type of a classification problem, survived or not, but there's plenty of other things on Kaggle as well. There's a classic regression problem of predicting house prices, very similar to the work I was doing. And there's plenty of other data sources you can use and experiment with, and a whole community of people doing this. So I'd really recommend that as an opportunity to dive into this and actually work on some projects. You don't have to go super deep with the data science. You don't have to be an expert, But you do have to have a core understanding and know the principles and know what you can do in certain situations to improve a model, know what solutions might work, and so on. So that's my main advice for applying this. Between that and the resources, you should really be right to pass this exam with somewhere between a few weeks and a few months of study. It really depends on the person, depends how much previous experience you've had, whether you have other AWS certifications, and so on. But the main advice is, number one, do Stefan Marek's course and Frank Kane's course for sure. Number two, there are plenty of other courses out there as well if you feel like you need an extra boost or you want to do some extra hands-on labs. Number three, apply this. And number four, once you're done with Frank Kane and Stefan Marek's course, there's also practice exams that they provide. Once you've done that, you can book the practice exam. And once you've done the practice exam, if you did well on that, you'll be ready to sit the actual exam. So best of luck for this. It's a tough exam, like I said, but it is completely doable. I've done it myself, and I'm saying that anyone can do this with fairly minimal experience starting with. You just need to work hard and apply the knowledge that you gain. So congratulations, you made it to the end of this video. I know it's a bit long, but I like to make these long so I can go really in depth and give as much value as possible. If you did like the video, please give it a like. It really helps me out. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this, and have a great day, guys. Catch you guys later.